me too, I guess. Testing on how doing that is, and to be perfectly honest, this game I'm covering for this week's episode wasn't really even on my radar. I didn't know anything about it. I never really even heard of it until I happened to see a guy in the local mall playing it on his laptop, and really the only reason it caught my eye then was because it looked like Dungeon Keeper at first glance. So, what is this game that grabbed my attention by the scruff of the neck and shook it until I agreed to play it? Let's give it a look. Kyoto game. Start!
The Game of Dwarves was developed by a Swedish company called... sorry. Too many dwarven accents in the past week. Let me try that again. A Game of Dwarves was developed by a Swedish company called Zeal Game Studio and published in 2012 by Paradox Interactive, who, among their many game credits, also published several game series such as Europa Universalis, Hearts of Iron, and Magicka. You play as a dwarven prince who was sent out by his father, the king, to reclaim their lands which were stolen long ago by mages. To this end, you'll first play through a couple of tutorial levels before eventually getting into the game proper. Now, in each level, you control a small number of dwarves in an underground area. Each dwarf can hold one of 5 jobs. A digger, which is self-explanatory. Military, which starts a dwarf out wielding an axe, but they can later be upgraded to either a fighter or spear thrower, and then upgraded some more from there. A crafter, who builds furniture in the settlement, which affects the happiness of your dwarves. A worker, who is somewhat confusingly named, as their purpose is to tend to any food you have growing in the settlement, so why not name him, a farmer? Anyway, lastly, there's the scholar, who grants research points you can spend to upgrade your dwarves or your settlement. Now, if you need more, you can order dwarflings to your settlement and assign them one of those 5 jobs. How quickly dwarflings arrive depends on the overall happiness of your settlement, for whatever reason. And initially, you can have a maximum of 10 dwarves. Upgrading your spawning pool increases that cap. The game has 2 modes, campaign and custom game. The campaign has 13 levels to work through. You complete each level by finishing certain quests, which are tracked for you on the side of the screen. You can also complete various side quests, known in the game as King's Quests, which I'm fairly sure have no official affiliation with the Kingdom of Daventry. Completing these King's Quests increases your reputation, which in turn grants you influence, which you can spend to give your dwarves various military, economic, or research abilities as they start each level. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on the controls. Depending on what you have selected at the bottom of the screen, you use the mouse to order your dwarves to dig or interact with objects. You can also sell or move objects and even teleport your dwarves. As your settlement can spread out vertically as well as horizontally, you use the R and F keys to shift your view one layer up or down, respectively, and you can use the mouse wheel to zoom in or out or rotate your view. Basically, if you've played Dungeon Keeper, it won't take you long to figure out the controls. You can also control the speed at which the game plays out via controls in the bottom right corner. You can pause the action, let it play at normal speed, or fast forward it. Here, we get into the first of many problems with this game. Unless you need to pause what's going on to plan out some kind of strategy, I would highly recommend keeping the game on fast forward, otherwise the dwarves move incredibly slow. And there's no way to speed them up other than researching a speed boost, but that takes time, and presumably you would have to research it anew with each level. I'll tell you why I don't know that for sure later. While we're on the subject of problems, let's go back to the mouse controls. They feel inaccurate to me. There have been many times when I know I clicked on an area to dig, but the square wouldn't light up, so I'd have to click it again. Also, the game can't seem to make up its mind whether it wants to let you dig a couple of layers down from where you're looking or not. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. The camera rotation is also not without its problems. Rotating horizontally is fine, sure, but vertically is another matter. The camera has no qualms about rotating to a full-on top-down view, but if you're trying to see what's going on in a particular room and there's a higher room blocking your view, good luck trying to get that room out of your way, because the camera will not rotate enough to be level with the room, or at least enough to get higher layers out of your view. The writing on some of the tablets you find, which are supposed to be clues on how to get to whatever you're digging to in a level, is a little confusing. I came across one which said I had reached all the way through the bottom, which I clearly had not, as there were question marks which indicate room locations located under the room with that tablet. There are other questionable aspects to the game as well, like the happiness meter, the gold bar located at the top of the screen. Other than affecting how quickly new dwarflings arrive in your settlement, it seems to have absolutely no bearing whatsoever on the game. For most of my gameplay, the meter has been the lowest it can be, and nothing happened. The game doesn't end, I don't have dwarves threatening to leave, nothing. Even if it did have some significant meaning, I'd be screwed because the game gives you no indication as to how to improve happiness. Yes, there's objects you can build which supposedly increase it, but I've tried building some of them to no avail. And there's no messages or anything of the sort telling me something like, hey, we could use some more beds in this area, or anything along those lines. The most confusing thing of all, however, happens before the game even loads. When starting the game, Steam will flash this message at me, saying that I'll need to input this activation code at some point during the game when it asks me to. Just to make sure I got the point, it also gives me that same message in the bottom right corner when the game actually does start. I've played this game for about 8 or 9 hours now. I've tried looking at the in-game store. I've started a custom game. I've played through the tutorial levels and gotten to the first main level of the campaign. I've started a new campaign. Nothing. No messages asking me to input any kind of code. Did they remove that requirement and forget to take out the Steam notification? I don't know. If it's supposed to ask me for the activation code sometime after the first level, then I know for a fact I'm never going to see it because I've long since stopped playing. I was first drawn to this game because it was reminiscent of Dungeon Keeper. Now, while the similarities are there, Dungeon Keeper this ain't. I played this game for about 9 hours, like I said. It took me about 2 of those 9 hours before I simply became overwhelmingly bored with this game. The only reason I played it any longer was to make sure I wasn't missing out on anything which might have changed my opinion about it. And at this point, if I have missed something, it's too late. I don't intend to go back to this game. I know all I need to know. The mouse controls are not that accurate. Graphically, the game is not the best in the world, but basically the game is just mind-numbingly dull. I'm sorry I ever saw it. Well, minasan, that is, of course, just my opinion. And while a Game of Dwarves may not necessarily be my cup of tea, perhaps you drink a different brand of tea, or another drink altogether. So if a Game of Dwarves, and indeed my drinking metaphors, haven't scared you away, and you want to play the game for yourself, it is available for $9.99 on Steam. I've also seen some indications that the game might be available for PS3, but take that with a grain of salt. I've searched on the PlayStation Store's website, and all it came back with was, Nani sore? Please consider liking and sharing this episode with your friends if you enjoyed it, and of course click the subscribe button so you won't miss out on any new videos here. And don't forget, you can also like and follow the channel on Facebook and Twitter as well at facebook.com and twitter.com/GeminiDoesGames. 次回まで私の名はジェミナイです。ありがとうございました。さよなら。